Have you ever been stressed about Christmas? I got some nervous laughter, and then I got some, yep, definitely been stressed about Christmas, right? And we've talked about it over and over about how so many times that we kind of get caught up in the game of everything has to be just right. Maybe you're that person, maybe you're not. Maybe you're like, we'll wing it. My wife's staring at me because I'm the wing it person. And she's the planner, and so she wants it all done, and I'm like, we'll take care of it. And she's like, no, that's not how we're going to do things. But I think sometimes even whether we're a planner or we're the wing it person, we get stressed, right? Because we think like, okay, well, this is not right or this is not right. How many of you have made plans for Christmas and something's already gone awry? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's like a rampant spread of all kinds of sickness and illness going around, right? And so that's throwing a kink into Christmas plans. There's travel and all of those things, and you got to go here and you got to be here, and like there's a certain time that your family's got to be somewhere, and you're already stressing about being there on time. Anybody? No, y'all are always on time. Then we are alone, Logan. We got to church later this morning than we've ever gotten to church in our married life or in my whole life. I am not a late person. I am always on time, and I had to take some really deep breaths this morning. It's okay, though. We're here. But whatever it is, I think there's a lot of things. Maybe there's stress about what's under the Christmas tree for you because the finances are tight in our economy. Maybe it's stress that you didn't get a Christmas tree up because it felt like the day after Thanksgiving, December was here, and you're like, wait, we only have 3 weeks till Christmas? Right? Or maybe you didn't get any Christmas decorations up, and there's just lots of stress. I want you to think for just a moment this morning. We're going to read the first 7 verses of the chapter 2 of Luke this morning. And it's the birth of Jesus. And I can tell you this, I don't think Mary's intention or plan was to have her baby in a cattle stall. Like that was not Mary's intention or plan, right? How many of you mothers are going to opt for that, to have your child there? Exactly. We're not opting in for that. Do you think Mary was a little bit stressed? Do you think Mary was a little bit going, we're going to have the baby now, right here? But even in the stress, even in all of that, I believe that Mary magnified the Lord because she trusted the Lord. And listen, the plan that you have is not always going to go the way you think it should go. Listen, you're not always placed where you think you should be placed. It's just not it. But listen, when we trust the Lord in our plan and our placement and what He has for us, we magnify Him. And that's our aim this morning, is simply this. We magnify God when we trust His plan. We magnify God when we trust His plan. Is that easy? No. You think Mary planned to get on a donkey at 9 months pregnant? Nope. But where did God have them? Right where He wanted them, right? Because this was all part of God's plan and what He had told the prophets years ago that would happen. In Luke chapter 2, starting in verse 1, it says this: in those days, a decree went out from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be registered. This was the first registration when Quirinius was governor of Syria, and all went to be registered, each to his own town. And Joseph also went up to his own town. And Joseph also went up from Galilee, from the town of Nazareth, to Judea, to the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of David. Let's just stop there. Listen, we magnify the Lord when we trust in God's timing. We trust in God's timing. Like that's what God does. Listen, there's a timing going on here. Listen, in those days, that's a time, isn't it? In those days, a decree went out from Caesar Augustus. So in those days, something was happening. A decree goes out that all the world should be registered. This was the first registration when Quirinius was governor of Syria. What is Luke doing? He's painting the time for us, isn't he? He's painting, hey, this was the time of a registration when Quirinius was governor of Syria. He's painting the time for us specifically. And all went to be registered, each to his own town. It wasn't like, oh, Logan and Brady had to go register, but Ricky and Katie didn't. What does the scripture say? All had to go, right? So there's this timing going on where this is the time in which they have to go. But listen, and they had to go to their own town, which is huge because why? Watch. And Joseph also went up from Galilee, from the town of Nazareth, to Judea, to the city of who? Y'all did not listen a while ago. To the city of who? David. Which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and the lineage of who? Why is that a big deal? Because Jesus is to come through the line of who? Y'all got it. Good. Right? This is big. But it's God's timing, isn't it? It's God's timing that makes it right. And when we trust in his timing, even when we don't know what's going on. Listen, you think Mary wanted to get on a donkey and ride at 9 months pregnant? Ladies, any of you that have been pregnant, at 9 months, do you want to get on a donkey? You don't even want to walk from the bedroom to the kitchen. Or waddle, rather, we say. Much less get on a donkey. But what's going on? We're going to trust in God's timing. Right? We're going to trust in the Lord. We've trusted him this far. We're going to continue trusting him. Timing's one of those funny things for us because we're impatient, aren't we? Yeah, we're impatient. We want things right now. That's what fast food's done for us, right? And when we don't get it, we're frustrated. We do that. Timing's just hard for us. It's really hard in our culture. But listen, God sometimes makes us wait to teach us patience. Sometimes God makes us wait to teach us greater lessons. Sometimes God makes us wait to help us learn discipline. But his timing, listen to me, his timing is always right. Let me tell you a little bit about timing. John had come to me, John Spencer had come to me and said, hey, pray for Marcy and I. We're walking through possibly going and serving with Young Life, and it's awesome. So we started praying about that, and then they went on their trip to Colorado and came back and was like, hey, this is we're doing this, and we were pumped. And I was like, all right, where y'all going? He's like, we're going to Fort Drum, New York. I'm like, oh, that's fun. Surface of the sun to the surface of ice. It's pretty much where you're going, John. And so as timing's right, and John's like, hey, we'll be moving in February, and I was like, awesome. Well, I go to the chiropractor once every couple of weeks, and after John told me they were going to Fort Drum, I was going to my chiropractor, and I just go in and kind of see. There's lots of different chiropractors in the office, and I just see whoever's available. It's just how I roll. I'm like, I don't care, just adjust me. Well, I got this this lady, and she's like, hey, come back. And I was like, okay. And she starts adjusting me. I've never seen her before there. She's brand new. And she's adjusting me, and we're just chatting back and forth. She asked me what I did for a living. She's like, oh, that's really cool. And she was like, I found faith later in life. And because I grew up Catholic, I was like, oh, where'd you grow up? And she's like, in New York. Oh, cool. Well, where at New York? She's like, oh, it's kind of upstate New York. It's really cold all the time. It's like, give me an example. She's like, well, kind of the Fort Drum area. Excuse me, what? She's, yeah, like that Fort Drum area. My dad and my grandfather and my uncle all kind of worked in that area. We lived a little bit south of there, but I was like, are you kidding? I mean, I'm just kind of just dumbfounded at the moment. It's like, I've never met anyone from Fort Drum, much less, I think I've heard the term Fort Drum twice in my life, and John Spencer said them both, right? And like, but listen, this is God's timing, right? And so we begin to talk and discuss, and this week I just got set up. She's going to go have dinner with John and Marcy Spencer to talk about what it was like growing up a teenager in Fort Drum, New York. That's God's timing, church. That's what he does. And listen, we are no different. If we will just open our eyes and trust in God's timing, it's always right. But I also want you to see this. It's about God's placement. Where does he put Mary and Joseph? Where does he put them? He puts them in Bethlehem, the city of who? Say it again, the city of who? David. He puts them where they're supposed to be. Why? So God gets glory, right? So God gets glory. When we trust him, guess what happens? He's magnified. When we trust him, he's magnified. Watch this. And Joseph also went up from Galilee, from the town of Nazareth to Judea, to the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and the lineage of David, to be registered with Mary, his betrothed, who was with child. And while they were there, the time came for her to give birth. While there, the placement, God puts them where? In Bethlehem, the city of David, for Jesus to be born there. The placement. We got to trust in God's placement. Listen, some of you are placed right now in maybe a job that you're not a fan of. But if you will trust the Lord, he's going to use you right there. He'll use you right where you're at. Because guess what? He had a hand in placing you there. Parents, God gifted you your children. He placed those kids in your care. He's going to use you to point them to Jesus. Trust that. Even on the days that you think, man, I am messing this up royally. Anybody ever feel that way, parents? Yeah. I mean, thank you, some of you older parents where you're like, yep, still feel like that. That gives me hope. Not that you're screwing up, but hope that like I'm not completely ruining it. But listen, we can trust in God's placement of us. Where he puts us for a reason. Maybe you're just in a really tough time relationally with spouse. Maybe you're in a tough time financially, wherever you're at. He's put you there. Some of your own decisions have put you there, let's be honest about that. But the placement of where God has you, you have to trust. He's teaching you something. And so many times we get caught up about all the bad things that are happening, and I can't fix this, and I can't fix this, and if this coworker would just do this, or this person would just do this, or if my boss would just stop being an idiot. Right? And we want to try to focus on all the things that we want to control or fix instead of just stopping and going, God has me where He has me. God, how do you want to use me? He put Mary and Joseph right where He wanted them for Jesus to be born. Why? So that He would be magnified, that He would be glorified. He has you where He has you so that you may magnify His name. And it goes on in verse 7. Like Luke doesn't give us, Luke kind of makes this birth really short. It's like, here it is. And she gave birth to her firstborn son and wrapped him in swaddling cloths and laid him in a manger because there was no place for them in the inn. Jesus is born. Done. And though it's so simple and such a small phrase, there's so much going on here, right? And here's why, is that we can trust in God's plan. Because she gives birth to her firstborn son and He wrapped him in swaddling cloths. That's the fulfillment of what? Prophecy. Of what God said He would do. And then listen, He laid him in a manger. Fulfillment of what? What God said He would do. Because there was no place for them in the inn. Right? There's no place for them in the inn. The town's packed. Everybody's come to be registered, right? We already established that. The town's packed. There's no place for them in the inn. So they're literally in kind of a don't think of like a barn like we do with the manger scenes so often, right? But think of like just kind of cattle in an area, if you will. There may have been a fire, or some historians believe there was probably a fire in the middle with kind of this area, but it's not clean. It's not somewhere you want to be. Donnie and I were having this discussion this week. Like, there's a difference between mud and like cow mud, right? When you step in mud, it's one thing. When you step in cow mud, it's a completely different thing altogether. And this is where they're at. They're not in anything clean environment. And it's almost the worst place imaginable that you could have a child. So what's the point? What's the purpose? That Jesus was born in the lowliest of situations. Because He came for all people. He came for all people. He wasn't born a prince, as I read this week. He wasn't born a prince, He was born a pauper. And for those of you that are below 60, He was a peasant. He was born in the lowliest of situations so that everyone would know He was born for them. We can trust in God's plan. Because His plan is always, listen to me, church, His plan is always perfect. And it always has a reason. And let me tell you that reason: to glorify Him. To glorify Him. His plan may not look perfect to you because it may entail pain, and it may entail heartache, and it may entail some discipline, and it may entail some really tough things, but it doesn't mean it's not perfect. Because through all of those things, God says, you will glorify me. And here's what I'm going to do. Church, we can trust Him. We can trust His timing. We can trust where He's placed us. And we can trust that His plan is perfect.